Greetings to the broken. It is fascinating to observe that over 90% of our audience opts not to subscribe. If this video speaks to you, think about subscribing and giving that like button a gentle nudge. We aspire to gather 500 likes on this work. Please share your thoughts in the comments to stay connected with our latest stories. Very well, let us move forward. He desired me to share a bed with another man. Not merely any man, a man of African descent. And not merely share a bed with him, but also permit my husband to observe. I am Greg, now 68, reflecting on that summer when I was 38, residing in a seemingly flawless house in the suburbs of Houston. The memories do not diminish as time goes by, instead, they intensify, slicing through the fabric of our being with every year that unfolds. In those hushed moments just before the first light of day, when slumber slips through my fingers as it frequently does these days, the burden of that choice remains a palpable presence upon my heart. My arthritic fingers glide over the creases of my face, and I ponder whether these lines were etched by the passage of time or the weight of remorse. Decisions born from fervor etch marks that the passage of time cannot erase. This is my revelation, my warning narrative. A tale of how the relentless pursuit of thrill can ultimately lead to a profound sense of void, reverberating through the years. I had spent almost 15 years with Greg at that point. We had crafted what many referred to as the good life, steady, cozy, and secure. Maybe a bit overly cautious, our marriage was akin to a museum exhibit, carefully displayed behind glass, while Greg navigated the world as a software engineer. Perpetually assessing. Perpetually pondering, a man who regarded passion as a puzzle to be unraveled. Once an elementary school teacher, I found myself transformed into a stay-at-home wife after our child departed for college. The stillness of our vacant home transformed into a resonant space, allowing the soft murmurs of my own unfulfilled longings to return to me like a haunting refrain. It began with a simple exchange, a soft conversation under the covers, weaving dreams of desires, of threesomes, of Greg observing as I explored intimacy with another. I would press my lips to his neck, roll my eyes, and brush these off as mere playful antics of the bedroom. Yet, as weeks morphed into months, his tone began to evolve. The dream transformed into a quest. He repeatedly brought up Zane. They claimed to have crossed paths at the gym. Zane was described as different, a term that held within it a realm of unvoiced assurances. Greg portrayed Zane as self-assured, prevailing, harboring a raw essence that my husband confessed he did not possess. He could offer you what I never could, Greg murmured one night, his fingers dancing lightly across my bare shoulder. It concerns your liberation, Greg, concerning the emotions I am unable to share with you. I found it hard to trust his words. It was on that fateful evening at the restaurant when Greg settled the bill and revealed that Zane was waiting upstairs, that all had been meticulously orchestrated. The fact that Zane had consented to accompany me made the ascent in the elevator seem to stretch on indefinitely. I gazed at my reflection in the mirrored walls, lipstick flawlessly applied, hair meticulously curled, eyes opened wide, revealing a terror that barely concealed the curiosity lurking beneath. My heart cried out, urging me to flee. My body pleaded with me to remain. Before Greg's knuckles could make contact with the door, it swung open. Zane stood there, bare-chested and formidable, his torso a tapestry of ink and chiseled strength. He gazed into my eyes, a smile playing on his lips that seemed to assert possession even before I had granted it. If you want me to stop, just say the word, he whispered against my ear, his hand already resting on my hip. Otherwise, you are mine for the evening. I ought to have turned my back and left. One ought to have recalled the promises we made, the journey we've shared, the illusion of our affection. Instead, I yielded to the moment that would ultimately fracture everything. His kiss held an undeniable authority. His hands steady and deliberate as they ripped the straps of my dress, allowing it to cascade to the ground. In an instant, I found myself bare before him, vulnerable in ways I hadn't experienced in years. Greg occupied the corner armchair, his silence punctuated by a keen fascination as Zane effortlessly lifted me, as if I were a mere feather. As Zane shed his garments, the very foundation of my reality shifted beneath me. My husband observed as another man took possession of me, each movement a forceful caress, until I was adrift, untethered from time, space, and fidelity. I recall Greg pressing his lips to my forehead afterward, murmuring his gratitude as if I had bestowed upon him a treasure instead of shattering something hallowed. I glanced at Zane, his smile radiating satisfaction, and in that instant, I understood that my life was about to split into two distinct chapters, before and after. The dawn arrived, laden with anguish, an ache that pierced the body, weighed on the heart, and shadowed the soul. My body throbbed in neglected corners. My conscience felt as heavy as a boulder. Greg lay beside me, serene and satisfied, as my thoughts wandered through each memory shared with Zane. Each caress stirred a deep, instinctual response within me. Each feeling that awakened a sense of vitality within me, a rare experience after years of numbness. Afterward, we engaged in a delightful game of house. We feigned the existence of an ordinary relationship. Yet the truth lingered in the air. I had been consumed, conquered, released from constraints. And God help me, I yearned for more. A week later, Greg brought up that Zane was eager to meet with me once more. I pretended to hesitate, though my heart raced with eager anticipation. We gathered at an Airbnb the subsequent Saturday, with pristine sheets, fragrant candles flickering softly, and Greg perched in the corner, wine glass in hand, observing the scene unfold. Zane entered the room, his presence undeniable, even in silence. This moment unfolded in a way that felt distinct, languid, profound, and profoundly personal. He savored each moment as he undressed me, his lips tracing every inch of my skin, as if committing a map to memory. He bent me over the couch, positioning me with precision, and claimed me with a confidence that left my knees weak. I noticed the shift in Greg's expression. The thrill in his gaze now mingled with a shadow of something more ominous. A deep hurt lingers. Yet, I found myself indifferent to it all. My body had ceased to be a part of my marriage. It was a possession of the moment, entwined with the forbidden, and intrinsically linked to Zane. As it came to a close, I found myself quaking on the floor. Zane drew me close, his arms enveloping me as he caressed my hair with a surprising gentleness. Greg drew near, pressing his lips to my forehead, the touch lingering more than it had in the past. He evokes emotions in you that I never managed to, doesn't he? Greg murmured softly. My silence spoke volumes. Following that fateful night, the dam gave way. Zane initiated direct communication with me through text. Innocuous exchanges laced with subtle hints of longing. In the stillness of the night, I found myself replying, concealed in bathrooms, my heart pounding, fingers meandering across the screen. The addiction gripped me, infiltrating my thoughts at dinner, in church, and in every fleeting moment shared with Greg. Then arrived the message that would seal our fate. Would you like to meet me without Greg around? I gazed at those words for what felt like an eternity, my finger poised delicately above the screen. In that moment, I pressed the keys to form the two letters that would ultimately lead to my downfall. Indeed, our paths crossed at a hotel nestled on the fringes of town, without artifice, devoid of sentiment. Only a primal, perilous craving. He thrust me against the wall as soon as I stepped inside, kissing me as if he possessed the very essence of my breath. This time, the seduction was anything but slow. It was an unadulterated instinct that had me calling out for him, while the image of my husband's face faded into the background of my mind. Upon my arrival, I found Greg engrossed in a television show, inquiring about the details of my shopping excursion. I averted my gaze, unable to confront his eyes. The shower that night was scalding hot as I attempted to cleanse myself of the traces of my betrayal, yet the weight of it lingered still. Zane had left an imprint on me that soap could never reach. Greg began to observe the transformations unfolding around him. My diversion in the midst of dialogue. The space I occupy in slumber. The manner in which I scrutinized my phone, yearning for a sense of connection. It seems you're developing feelings for him, aren't you? At last, he posed the question under the cloak of night. I'm uncertain, I murmured, caught in the web of honesty yet paralyzed by the fear of revelation. For the first time, Greg turned away without pressing his lips to my forehead. A profound change had occurred between us, and we were both acutely aware of it. My encounters with Zane became more regular. Ceased to share with Greg. The burden of guilt that once weighed heavily upon me slowly morphed into a thrilling sense of liberation. Zane stirred within me a force that had long lain in slumber, a feral energy, a strength, a sensuality I had never realized was there. I could take you away if I wanted to, Zane murmured one night as I lay bare in his bed. I chuckled, yet the reality loomed weighty in the space that separated us. A fragment of my being yearned for abduction, to break free from the stifling idealism of my suburban existence. Even in Greg's touch, it was Zane I sensed. As Greg's gentle kiss lingered on my lips, a yearning for Zane's fervent embrace surged within me. Each tender touch from my husband only served to emphasize the untamed passion I had unearthed in the embrace of another man. As the weeks unfolded, my dual existence settled into a familiar rhythm. Greg feigned indifference, perhaps wishing that I would grow weary of the charade, yet, I refrained. I delved further into the affair, slipping away while Greg slumbered, conjuring up excuses, and savoring the fleeting moments with Zane. Then arrived the night that transformed everything, with Zane standing at our door, welcomed by Greg. My hand shook slightly as I poured the wine, fully aware of the unfolding events. Greg had not merely lost control, he had relinquished it entirely. After dinner, Greg reclined on our couch, the very one where we had woven our lives together, and uttered words that linger in my mind. I want to watch again. Yet again, I find myself curious about the lengths you will reach. His tone was devoid of emotion, almost surgical. With the weight of despair hanging in the air, a man stood witness to the slow demise of his marriage, compelled to capture its last breaths. Zane grasped my hand and guided me up the stairs. I cast a glance back at Greg, who nodded with hollow eyes. That night was brutal. Zane ventured into realms I had never imagined possible. They hurled insults that ought to have stung, yet instead, they ignited a fire within me. Utilized my form as if it were his own, and all the while, Greg lingered in the shadows, wine glass in hand, his gaze chilling with every moan that slipped from my lips. Observe her, Zane instructed Greg at one moment. Observe her true desires. Greg's expression stayed neutral, yet a flicker of something extinguished in his gaze at that instant. I witnessed the moment unfold, akin to the extinguishing of a flickering candle. 15 years of trust snuffed out in an instant. Yet, I found myself unable to cease, refused to cease. The ecstasy had morphed into an addiction, and I had drifted so far into its embrace that the sensation of clarity was but a distant memory. I recall glimpsing my reflection in the mirror opposite our bed, cheeks flushed, eyes brimming with a wild abandon, hair clinging to my sweat-dampened skin. The woman gazing back at me was almost unrecognizable. She appeared as if under a spell, utterly changed. In that fleeting moment of insight, I pondered whether this unfamiliar figure reflected the essence of who I had truly been, hidden beneath the facade of propriety, beneath the guise of the devoted spouse. As the moment came to a close, with Zane having completed his intimate act, I found myself breathless on the matrimonial bed we had selected together at Macy's all those years ago. It was then that Greg made his approach. He pressed his lips to my forehead one final time, yet his gaze was filled solely with resentment. His lips brushed against my skin, frigid and detached, reminiscent of bidding farewell to something that had already slipped away. The weeks that followed unfolded like a gradual demise. Greg hardly uttered a word, scarcely made contact with me. Our once vibrant marriage has dwindled to quiet dinners and solitary nights apart. At times, I would find him gazing at me, his eyes filled with a deep sorrow that seemed to ache within me. I provided you with what you desired, he finally uttered one evening following yet another dinner steeped in silence. Yet now? Your presence is a constant reminder of him, and I find it impossible to look at you without that haunting image surfacing in my mind. I remained silent. What argument could I present in my favor? You're no longer mine, he pressed on, his voice trembling. Perhaps I bear some responsibility for that, perhaps I shattered what we had. The following morning, I stirred from slumber to find the house devoid of life, accompanied only by a letter. Greg had vanished, no theatrics. There are no opportunities for redemption. Merely the silent exit of a man who had wagered his marriage and forfeited it all. Zane lingered for a time, yet everything felt different. In Greg's absence, the exhilarating allure dissipated. I started to perceive Zane for his true essence, not as a savior or a romantic hero, but as a man who reveled in power and the allure of the forbidden. As the final whistle blew, his enthusiasm faded into the ether. In time, the call ceased. The words vanished into thin air. In an instant, solitude enveloped me. Without a husband. There is no beloved, merely a vacant dwelling, haunted by the specters of my own creation. Now, many years have passed, and there are moments when people inquire if I harbor any regrets about it. On those bright days, I find the strength to refuse, for in that fleeting, intense instant, I felt undeniably vibrant. Yet, in the sincere shadows of restless nights, Greg's voice lingers in my mind, and I find it impossible to gaze upon you without his presence overshadowing my thoughts. He extended the gift of freedom, believing it would draw us nearer together. Instead, it ignited a blaze that consumed all we had constructed together, leaving me here now, not a spouse, not a lover, merely an aging woman who soared too near the sun, only to witness her entire existence reduced to cinders. The solitude of these twilight years is the cost I bear for those fleeting moments of bliss. The vacant chair facing me at dinner, the chill of sheets untouched by another's warmth, the stillness of holidays, these embody the genuine repercussions of unbridled longing. My daughter comes by from time to time, accompanied by my grandchildren, who refer to me as grandma while regarding me with a sense of wonder. There's an unsettling awareness among them, a whisper of doubt regarding the tale spun about grandpa's absence. Children possess an uncanny ability to sense when adults conceal the truth. My daughter has never inquired outright about the events that transpired between us, yet there are moments when she believes I am unaware, and I find her gazing at my face, as if she is piecing together the fragments of a riddle that remains unsolved. In my 50s, I ventured into the world of dating once more, even entering into a brief marriage at 62 with a gentle widower who sought companionship over fervor. Yet, I found myself unable to maintain it. The specter of my past, of the person I once was, perpetually lingered in the space that separated us. After 18 months, we parted ways amicably. He was worthy of a love that offered its entirety, not the fragmented remnants I had to offer. At times, I find myself pondering the fate of Greg. Did he discover joy? Did he reconstruct his existence alongside someone who appreciated the gifts he brought to the table? Over the years, I have composed countless letters, apologies, explanations, and heartfelt pleas for understanding, yet not a single one has ever been dispatched. What claim do I possess to disturb any semblance of tranquility he may have discovered? And what of Zane? He disappeared from my existence as swiftly as he had arrived. Once, about 5 years after everything unraveled, I sought him out, propelled by a misguided belief that maybe, just maybe, there had been something genuine between us. I found out he had shifted his affections to yet another married woman, entangled with another husband who wished to observe. We existed merely as figures in his endless performance. Should you find yourself perusing these words, it's possible you stand at a comparable juncture in your journey. Keep in mind that fervor ignites with intensity yet fades swiftly, whereas remorse lingers endlessly. What seems like liberation in the present may transform into your confinement for years ahead. Did Greg make a mistake by sharing me? Did I err in my desire for something greater? The solutions elude simplicity, yet the result was nothing short of catastrophic. There are certain boundaries that, once traversed, remain forever beyond return. Some wounds, regardless of the passage of time, remain forever unhealed. I observe women of my generation, encircled by their partners of 4 or 5 decades. I observe their easy silences, their shared humor, the manner in which they intuitively meet each other's needs without uttering a single word. I observe them clasp arthritic hands in the sterile confines of doctors' waiting rooms, confronting the specter of mortality side by side. That might have been our fate, Greg and I, aging side by side, navigating the twilight years with the solace of a life intertwined. Instead, I confront them in solitude, armed only with memories that twist like blades in the darkness, and therein lies the essence of desire. It offers boundless promises, seizes what it craves, and ultimately leaves you clutching nothing but recollections that slice deeper with the passage of time. At 68, I have come to understand that the most perilous phrase in any tongue is simply this, just this once. For what begins as once can evolve into twice, then transform into always, ultimately becoming forever, and merely is never merely anything at all.